All right. Uh, Welcome back to the class. Today we are going to study for the last part for this topic. Um, the last part is the BCG matrix, which is managing a portfolio of business as well. By the late of 1960, it's almost 1970. So, a generation of diversified conglomerates had accumulated portfolios of businesses in dozens of industries with no systematic framework for allocating capital, setting performance expectations, or making uh, divestitures decisions across such heterogeneous collections. Uh, the corporate headquarters was flying blind, armed with financial reporting, but lacking any strategic framework for evaluating the relative competitive positions and growth potential of their diverse holdings. So it was in this context that the Boston Consulting Group, BCG, the famous consulting group. So under the leadership of Bruce Henderson, they developed the growth share matrix, more commonly known as the BCG matrix. So this deceptively simply 2 by 2 framework. 2 by 2 framework, very simple. So it became arguably is the most widely used and most frequently critiqued tool in the history of corporate strategic consulting. So this is quite basic. So in recent days, actually, the BCG matrix is not working well, but as many industry era considered or recognized the positions use this matrix. So BCG matrix is quite and still important in a recent business era. So the BCG matrix is built on 2 foundational theoretical premises that deserve careful examination before we accept them at face value. The first, a business unit's competitive position is best measured by its relative market share, its share divided by the largest competitor's share. So this premise draws on the experience curve logic we discussed previous week. So higher cumulative market share implies greater accumulated production experience, which implies a lower cost structure. And second, the cash flow characteristics of a business unit are determined by the growth rate of each market. So high growth markets require heavy reinvestment to maintain position. So low growth markets generate surplus cash that can be harvested and redistributed as well. Okay, so we back to the screen. So I explained already. So let's read together. So business metrics, the framework plots each business unit on 2 axes, right? So relative market share, this is horizontal, is high and low. The market growth rate, vertical, and low and high. So, which means that horizontal, normally x-axis, this is what? Relative market share. And y-axis is a market growth rate. This is high, low, high, and 2 by 2 matrix, right? So this is quite basic but important. Okay, so let's open the new page to explain what business matrix is. Okay, so the BCG matrix places each business unit in one of four cells based on two dimensions: relative market share and market growth rate. So we are going to write some graphs, 2 by 2 matrix. So let's have a look. So first quadrant is called stars. So stars means that relative market share is high and market growth rate is also high. So which means that stars normally located this area, right? So in fact, some professors, some lecturers is use different graph sometimes, but I use this type of graph, so I hope you guys understand. So both on high, so this is star. So star is what? High relative market share and high market growth rate. The cash flow logic is that cash roughly neutral. What does it mean? That strong competitive position generates cash, but rapid growth requires a heavy reinvestment as well. So what is a strategic position? So invest to maintain or growth share. Or growth share. The star of today becomes the cash cow of tomorrow. This is a very interesting quote as well. Star today, it becomes what? Cash cow of tomorrow. So if market growth slows, And the second, we are looking for the cash cow. Cash cow is high relative market share, but low market growth rate. So normally cash cow is this era. Uh, it's my mistake. It's my mistake. This era, right? Please go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. It's my big mistake. My mistake. Okay, let's back. High relative market share, but low market growth rate. So market growth rate is the y-axis, right? And market relative market share is x-axis. So cash cow is high market share but low growth. So this era, cash cow. Good. So cash cow high relative market share plus low market growth rate. So what's the cash flow? Strong net cash generation. So dominant market position, the cost advantages, low growth requires a minimum reinvestment. You know why? Because cash cow market is located in a low growth market. So cash cow company or organizations do not need to invest money to growth or so R&D like that. It's because they just want to earn money, and their products make them money. Even the organization don't invest the money, right? So what is their strategy? So harvest aggressively. Harvest aggressively. So which means that they minimize the capital expenditure, use cash flow to fund the stars and a selective question market, right? They tend to use capital to stars or selective question market as well. Good. And second, third one is the question mark. It's problem children. So low market share, so high market growth. So this era is the question mark. And someone said that problem children. So so what is their cash flow? So net cash consumers, right? Anyway, So weak competitive position in a fast-growing market requires heavy investment to stay relevant, but uncertain payoff as well. So what is their strategy? Selective investment, because they do not have enough money, and also their market share. So either commit resources to build share, convert to star, or divest before the market mature and position becomes permanent as well. And the last type is the dog. I firmly agree that. So low market share, low market growth. It's dog. So in Korean term, is when people face some negative situation, we call it we normally use that word K like that. Many students already know that. So in a Western culture also use that word. Interesting. So anyway, as in a dog, so the low market share and the low market growth. So what's cash flow? Cash flow neutral at best. So they trapped in a weak competitive position in the mature markets, often secretly cash traps due to management distraction. So what is their strategy? Is it divest or liquidate unless there is a strategic reason. So, for example, the complementary role in a portfolio, customer relationship, bridge, and niche profitability like that. Um, I hope all students understand all of these four type of business metrics. So we are back to the lecture note. So here's the stars. We'll review the business metrics. So high share, high growth. So cash flow neutral, I said a strong position, generate cash, but rapid growth, and having investment. Then question mark, low share, high growth. So net cash consumers is a weak position in a fast-growing market. Selectively invest to build share. And cash cow, high share, low growth, a strong net cash generators. Low growth requires minimal reinvestment, harvest aggressively, and use surplus cash to fund star or promising question marks. And the dogs, the bottom is low share, low growth as well. Okay, so the portfolio cash flow cycle. Um, the cash cows generate surplus. The fund question marks with competitive potential. The successful question mark becomes stars. So then, as market mature, start transition into cash cows, general enter capital, cash cows, the funded GE Aviation, GE Healthcare, like that, Wedge's rule. Okay, I'm gonna make the new page. I would like to explain this cash flow cycle. Um, the elegance of the business metrics lies in its prescription for cash flow management across the portfolio. So the framework envisions virtuous cycles of corporate capital allocation that, so if managed well, allows the diversified firm to self-finance its own growth without depending on external capital markets. So I'm going to explain more deeply. The cycle works as follows. Okay. So at the cash cow generates surplus cash beyond their own reinvestment needs. So sometimes the substantial surplus, particularly if the cash cow holds a dominant market position, as in a mature, stable market. So this surplus cash is directed by corporate headquarters to fund the heavy investment requirements. So of question marks with the most promising competitive potential. So those that management believes can achieve dominant market share before the market matures. So the question marks that succeed becomes stars. So as their market matures, the star transition into cash cows, the cycle sustains itself. So provided corporate headquarters allocates the cash wisely and the stars are not starved of investment prematurely. So the classic historical example is that General Electronics portfolio under Jack Welch. So General Electronics capital a class cash cow generating um, the enormous cash flows from its diversified financial services businesses as well as funded the heavy investment requirements of GE Aviation, GE Healthcare, and GE Power as those businesses competed to sustain their number one or number two competitive positions in their respective markets as well. So Rach's famous dictum is a be number one or number two in every market we compete in, or fix, sell, or close the business. So was in effect a VCG matrix prescription applied with still-fisted disciplines across General Electric's entire portfolio as well. Okay, this is the General Electric case is the good example for this flow. Uh, then we are looking for the next next one for the business metrics critical evaluation as well. So I would like to explain it on my own page. So no framework in strategy management has been simultaneously more influential and more criticized than the BCG metrics. So its simplicity is both its greatest virtue and its most dangerous flaws as PhD level students. So you must engage honestly with its limitations. Of course, you guys are not PhD students, but this is really helpful to understand and also mm, understand and also help to implicate in a real business era. The first critique is that the relative market share is an imperfect proxy for competitive advantage. So the BCG framework assumes that relative market share is the best single indicator of a business unit's competitive position. So because it proxies for accumulated experience and resulting cost advantage. So this assumption was more defensible in the manufacturing dominated economy of 1970 than it is in the knowledge intensive platform driven economy of 2024. So in software platforms, network effects costs and data advantages may matter more than production volume. So in premium consumer goods, brand strength and design capability may determine the competitive position independent of market share. In services, talent density and organizational cultures may be the primary determinants of competitive advantage. So market share measures um, outcomes, not the underlying resources and capabilities that um, um, generate um, those outcomes as well. And second critique is that about the market growth. So the market growth rate is threshold arbitrary. So the BCG matrix 10% growth rate diving line between high and low growth is an empirical artifact of U.S. economy in the early 1970s. So it was roughly the nominal GDP growth rate at the time. So it is not a theoretically derived threshold in a low interest rate environment with 2 or 3% maybe it's economic growth in a recent day. So business growing at 8% might be a high growth opportunity. In a high growth emerging market expanding at 20% per year, and a business growing at 10% might be a laggard. So the framework provides no guidance on setting the appropriate threshold for a specific context as well. So you must consider it. The environment is changed. And a second critique is that the dog label um, can create self-fulfilling prophecy as well. So the most dangerous practical consequence of the BCG matrix is the management behavior it can induce in a dog business units. So once labeled a dog, a business unit typically faces reduced capital allocation, loss of the strongest management talent, so who are reassigned to stars and question marks. So diminished organizational attention and advocacy at the corporate headquarters, and ultimately the divestiture pressure. So these consequences applied to a business that might have been revitalized with no innovation or repositioning can create a self-fulfilling propensity. So the dog performance deteriorates not because its underlying potential has disappeared, but because the framework's prescription deprived it of the resources needed to improve. The most famous counterexample is a IBM case. So IBM, by the early 1990s, the mainframe computer division was widely labeled a dog. Oops. Mainframe. Oops. What happened? Was widely labeled a dog. So legacy business in a rapidly declining market to be harvested and eventually divested. So IBM's board and management resisted this prescription. So IBM did not abandon the mainframe. mainframes. It invested in making the mainframe cloud compatible, energy efficient, and AI capable. So today, IBM mainframes run the vast majority of the world's banking transactions, airline reservations, and insurance processing as well. So the dog, properly managed and repositioned, become durable cash cow. And the last critic is that industry definition. So go new page for you. Maybe industry. The definition determines quadrant placement. So the BCG matrix is exquisitely sensitive to how the market and relative market share are defined. So, and these definitions are deeply contested in practice. In Starbucks, a coffee retailer, where it has approximately 40% of the premium segment in the US, Starbucks case, or a food service company where it perhaps 3 to 4% of food service spending. And Netflix, streaming video company, is dominant, or an entertainment company, a single-digit share player competing with cinema, live sports, social media, and music. So different definitions produce different business positions. This is really important. Produce different BCG positions. So, and different strategic prescriptions for the same business. So this definitional sensitivity is not a minor technical problem. So it is a fundamental conceptual challenge that limits the framework's prescriptive power in practice. Okay. Okay. I would like to make some things for you. Here is procedure assumptions. So BCG assume that relative market share is competitive advantage, but academic critic ignores brand data, network effects, talent, culture as advantage sources. So the good example for that is the Google search as well. So Google search dominant position stems from data and algorithm quality, not manufacturer scale as well. And this assumption is that the 10% growth that divide is high or low. But academic critique is that threshold is arbitrary and context free. The 10% growth in fintech is low. This is really important and slow. So 10% in commercial real estate is of course extraordinary. And a third is a dog. Should be divested. But the critic is that ignores the repositioning, niche profitability, and strategic complementary as well. This is a good example for the IBM case I explained already. And the first assumption is that cash flows should circulate within the portfolio. So academic critique is that the corporate internal capital market may allocate less efficiently than external markets. And the contemporary counterexample is that the evidence suggests the corporate headquarters systematically overinvests in stars and underperforms index funds in the long run as well. Okay, this is all things about the BCG metrics. And also, this is all things about this part, corporate strategy. Actually, I prepare part 5 as a corporate parent advantage like that. But we don't have enough time. So if we have enough time, I'd like to explain more things about this part. But this is enough to understand the corporate strategy within the business metrics as well. Okay, so we take a break first, then back to the class.